I'm Mel. And am I in the middle or at the crossroads once again where the two forbidden subjects of politics and religion intersect? This is the Sophie Show Roundtable, and glad to have to my right Andy, and once again joining us to my left is Kurt Olson. And we've been talking about COVID, everything having to do with the breaking story of the Wuhan lab, vaccine, and now we're going to get into segregation. Yeah, segregation. Let me put in another plug. Watch Garrett Kane, Faith and Freedom, talk about this subject as well. When you think segregation, you think racial segregation. No, we're talking about COVID segregation. Jamestown tarp skunks, local baseball team. We're being told that if you go to the stadium, there's going to be a vaccinated section. And if you're unvaccinated, you go to the other section. Andy, what do you think about that?
Well, I would definitely promote Garrett's film because he gave a little story about this, right? Which was fantastic in nature. But supposedly, if you go to the unvaccinated section, you not only have to buy your ticket, but you have to buy the seats around you so that you can be social distanced, right? So now you might have to buy a total of like 4 seats in order to go watch a baseball game, right? There's a whole bunch that I have wrong in my head about that whole thing.
When the tarp skunks don't make money, they ought not wonder why.
Yeah, who's gonna go?
Well, here's my thought process is how many good Christian people who want to go to a baseball game are going to go get vaccinated because they don't want to pay for 4 tickets?
You know what, Andy, you bring that up because I'm thinking about getting vaccinated. By the way, I'm not vaccinated, but I almost want to get vaccinated and go sit in the unvaccinated section so that I can identify with those whom I feel are getting the shaft. Wow. I can't stand this policy, and it's almost making me want to get the vaccination now just so I can have a sign there and saying, I'm vaccinated, but this vaccination segregation is for the birds or for the skunks. I don't know.
For the tarp skunks.
For the tarp skunks.
And apparently an awful lot of professional baseball teams and others.
Well, skunks by nature cause a lot of division. People have to choose, right? Whether they want to be around them
skunk
or not, right? Yeah,
exactly.
To skunk or not is the question. And so, we look at this and say, why is a baseball team making these kind of choices, right, to cause division?
Here's another question. Is this decision that they've made as an organization just another metaphor for the animal they've adopted?
Could very well be. The policy fits with the animal. Right?
Exactly.
So, skunks are divisive by nature, so let's go that way, right? But my question is, and that's what we were talking about earlier, it would start right at the gate. Who's going to decide whether you're vaccinated or not?
Yeah, and how are you going to find out?
How are you going to know, right? And are we going to trust people? Because we're not a country anymore that's built on that, right? So are we going to trust people to walk up and say, hey, can I please have 4 tickets instead of 1? Right? So that I can sit in the unvaccinated section, right? And then be treated like I have leprosy. We've seen this whole thing before.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of people who are saying, well, this is nothing different than those who had leprosy in the Bible. Right? They had to walk around and say they were unclean by anybody. So why isn't this a biblical thing, Mel?
Right.
Why is it not okay?
Right. And I like how Kurt described it as well, politically, what the last century had. Meaning
Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Jim Crow. We had segregated drinking fountains, restaurants, spots to sit on buses, schools. Mm-hmm. In fact, there was a vast movement to bring students of a certain color into certain schools. Mm-hmm. So are they going to bring certain unvaccinated people into certain schools?
Is it not likely that we're going to go to vaccinated schools and unvaccinated?
There you go.
Are we not going to go to unvaccinated baseball nights?
Yep.
Right? Like, hey, if
There you go.
to this, like,
Where the baseball team gets to make somewhere between a quarter and a half of what they would make normally.
and tell me that this is not going to lead somewhere along the line to churches having vaccinated and unvaccinated services.
Will not do that as a
Wow.
pastor. That would almost cause me to resign my post. If
We're
that
not
had-
going to do it, Mel, but tell me that there's not going to be churches that
Do
it.
that.
Right?
Yes.
There will be churches that will say, we're going to have a vaccinated service so everybody feels safe and everything's great, and then we're going to have an unvaccinated service. What I'd really like to know is there going to be coffee and donuts and cookies for the unvaccinated service.
Or are they going to treat them as second-class citizens?
That's exactly-
No drinks, no pastry.
Don't touch anything, right? We'll just don't touch anything. Don't say that. Just come in and do church. Because again, we wouldn't a year and a half ago. We would never ever have believed any of this was possible.
Right.
Exactly.
And now we're talking about this. We're talking about things that are possible.
Yep.
Because there are people and organizations and professional baseball teams that are actually doing this. You go to certain stadiums, if you're unvaccinated, go over here. I'd love to know how they're enforcing this. I really would.
That's my question. We go back to the gate. Okay, tell me how they're going to do this, right?
Here we go. Let's continue down this road.
Yeah.
How about COVID black market? COVID passport black markets.
There you go.
And our next prohibition will be, we got to get rid of the passport because, it's obviously not working.
That is a fantastic thought, right? Like that's what that easily could be what happens, right?
Yeah.
And we start going like the honor system isn't working, so how about this? How about if we put a chip in your hand, right? That not only lets you tell people whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, but it would just be easier to pay your bills. It would have your health information. We'll just put it all on this chip and we'll give it to you, right? And tell me how many Christian people aren't going to be like, sign me up, and when the barcode is 666, then I wonder what that is.
So what you're saying is,
No, I'm just hypothesizing.
you're
before people start
hypothesizing.
yelling at
I'm
me.
gonna start going down this road here. So are you suggesting that in the past 15 months, the church has been way too compliant?
Okay, well now I'm not going to suggest, and I'm going to tell you yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be on Andy's side on this one for sure.
And
We've been way
frankly,
too
so
compliant.
So would I. Because one could take the events of the last 15 months and basically say, what's the next crisis
Yep.
government's going to use to get the church to do what it wanted?
Right.
Well, the next crisis is already here, right? They've just wiped out all masks.
Yeah.
We know, anybody who's smart knows that the coronavirus cases are going to go up because they didn't do anything to take away from them. And where are they going to blame? Who are they going to blame?
Oh, so you're
for the
saying
spike?
we're going to Nero territory?
It's a setup to me. I'm not a conspiracy theory. It just makes sense now. Wait, what happened last Tuesday and then to Wednesday that made them say you no longer need to wear masks anywhere if you've been vaccinated and everything's okay? When they were telling us you need to wear 2 masks, first of all, this is how dangerous this stuff is. But also, we know there's tons of reports. People who have gotten the vaccination have gotten the virus.
True. That's true. But let's also consider something else. I believe there is polling that exists that is telling them what an absolute political disaster this is. The mask mandates, the restrictions, the barrels of lockdowns and mandates and edicts and executive orders. Across this country right now, there are angry parents showing up at school board meetings. And they're having their 8 and 10-year-old kid stare adults in the face and tell them to get rid of the masks. Are the adults going to send little Johnny and Sally back to their seat and not give them some measure of respect? Because these kids are explaining to them what they're dealing with day in and day out, with something that they've allowed happen that has impacted their life for now a year? I mean, I sincerely believe that there is going to be the mother of all political pushbacks. And I think it's going to fall down to 2 things. The tyranny we've seen from COVID-19 policy, which runs the gamut, including what we've been talking here, and the critical race theory, and frankly, that's a completely different Sophie Scholl episode. Those two things are blowing up across this country, and the politicians, the school board superintendents, and others, their hair is going to self-combust when this is over because they're going to feel it.
Yeah. Think about where we've come in 15 months. Weren't we told lockdown for 2 weeks until the curve is flattened?
Yep.
Now look what we're talking about.
We're approaching without total freedom. We are now, by the time my son graduates on June 13th from Bethel, it'll be day 454.
And how does Bethel handle this?
We've been open all year. Have we had some drama? Yes. Have there been a couple of calls that have come from the county health department because someone landed on a list and calls had to be made? Yes. But we've been open all year.
And like 5 days a week.
5 days a week, in person.
Mask policy for kids?
The only mask policy is when you enter the door and in the hallways.
So kids are sitting
in the classroom, no masks.
Wow. Hello, parents.
Yes.
Think about what...
Flashing neon sign. If you want your kids without a mask, Bethel is accepting kids for 21-22. And it will no longer be Bethel Baptist Christian Academy. It'll be Chautauqua Christian Academy, and that's happening very soon.
Can you see freedom there in an environment like that where you see control in these government-run schools? This COVID as well as the vaccine, all about control. Whereas where Kurt teaches, there's freedom.
Yeah.
You can breathe without a mask. I love it. That's great. And when we, observe what's going on here, we can't help but see how government has interjected itself into this whole aspect over the schools, as well as, I think, the TARP skunks.
Yes.
Because aren't they following the government edicts that have been imposed upon them?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Oh, so 2 weeks ago today, the CDC barks about, vaccinations and being able to take your mask off outside, basically opening things up for the country. And it was like, freedom! But this is where this narrative of the vaccinated and unvaccinated has now taken off. Mm-hmm. And everybody is adopting. In fact, we even have probably some local businesses that are doing this very thing.
Well, don't you think that part of the scary part is people want to get back to normal so badly that they don't care what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we want to play baseball, we want to see baseball so badly that we don't care how we treat people or are treated in the meantime.
Yep.
Right.
Tell me again that is not already surfaced in churches, but isn't going to be prevalent in churches. We want to be in church so bad. We want to have church so bad. We're willing to do whatever they ask us to have church. And again, that becomes a real fundamental theological second things type of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, when does it become a first thing, Mel? When do we cross the line and all of a sudden, like, when our Christianity is based completely on love, they will know we are Christians by our love. Right? We aim for love. That's our goal. And tell me that as a Christian, I go to a baseball stadium and I watch unvaccinated people being treated like that. Tell me that that's love.
Right. I that's why I go back to, if I get vaccinated, I'm going to sit in the unvaccinated section. I'll probably have a sign there making a statement about how segregated this is and how wrong it is to have this policy.
Other than the fact that these team owners and businesses are basically following whatever their governor says or whatever the CDC says, I would love to know who the geniuses are behind the closed doors who think this is brilliant economic policy for them as going forward. Me, I will not spend a single dime, penny, anywhere, any business or organization that even suggests that at their door. I will ask for a manager on duty, and I will say, I am not spending another dime in your store.
Yay.
And I've been doing that for X number of years. And if other people would do this, it would be just like Coca-Cola. Remember Coca-Cola with the Georgia election law? They jump on board. Oh, this election law is horrible. It's Jim Crow. Well, Coca-Cola realized really fast that they just might have people who drink their product who actually
I
believe...
don't know who, by the way.
Exactly. Who drink their product and think election integrity isn't such a bad thing. And so Coca-Cola has done this, sorry, we're out. And
we didn't really say it.
their economic well-being is more important to them than their politics. It took them flashing neon signs and kicking and screaming to get there. But how many of these professional sports owners and organizations are going to realize the absolute insanity that they are presenting to their audience?
But what if the government jumps in and decides to bail them out for the losses that they're going to have? Because have we not already seen that?
Yes,
Too
exactly.
big to fail.
What if the
big to fail.
government decides to jump in and start bailing out Christian schools and churches for the losses that they're going to have? Tell me how many churches are going to not take that money.
Yeah, right.
So where you're headed here is...
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just the guy. Mel's supposed to be in the middle.
So because we've spent over $6 trillion just in the last year, what's to say Congress couldn't have just a slush fund kitty that becomes, we can do with it as we please, and...
Well, we can't lose the NFL and Major League. I mean, people need that outlet.
Exactly.
And now tell me how quickly to me, within a year, you can have state-run churches.
Oh.
Can we, right, Andy, these scenarios you're bringing up, we can't put it past ourselves to think like that given what's happened already.
Exactly.
There are churches closing all over this country.
Exactly.
Tell me that they wouldn't take a bailout to stay open for another year, because we're built that way. We're built, if we compromise a little, we'll have more opportunities for the gospel. We're
Self-survival.
built that way. Right.
Yeah.
So tell me that that's not how it's going to be with Christian ministries, schools, all kinds of things. We'll be like, hey, because we'll always rationalize being open is the most important thing. It is more important for our doors to be open than for us to make a stand on something.
Yeah, right. Our doors to be open rather than going underground. That's very foreign to us. Whereas think about how many Christians throughout the world are underground.
Yeah. It's not foreign to the world. It's
Right.
only foreign to us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've gone past our usual time here, but this has been engaging. And we will continue this discussion, I'm sure, in later shows to come. And thanks again to Andy, Kurt, as I'm here in the middle, but for the Sophie Scholl Roundtable.